It's okay, bud. He said, like, we'll try next time if you get another shot. I was like, Dad, turn the damn TV on. We're like, I'm racing. We made it. Yeah. Just silence on the other end. He's like, you made it. I was like, yeah, we're in. Like, we're way in.
Thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for stopping.
Finally.
Yeah.
We've been wanting to do this for a long time, buddy. But, it's my fault, not yours.
That's all good. The fans want it.
But we're here.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're here.
Yeah. On your way to Mosport.
Yeah. We parked the hauler, and as usual, I'm taking it to the racetrack, and now we're here to have a chat.
That's good. So for all the racers, because everyone starts like in such different settings, like their home life, where they grew up. Tell me like where you were born, and then paint me a little bit of a picture of what your childhood was like.
Man, I was born in St. Thomas, Ontario, just a small town outside of London. Childhood, it was basically the same as probably close to yours. I mean, I was with my dad a lot at the shop. My dad's a truck mechanic. Okay. And we owned Kennington Truck Service. Okay. And we did all the maintenance and work on trucks for Elgin Motor Freight, which is
so that was his one client?
Or, yes.
Okay.
We did a lot. My dad did a lot of stuff in the early days for Auto Holloway. Okay. And brokers. He built a lot of Cummins engines. Okay. He was known for that. He took great pride in that and was a diesel truck mechanic. And so I grew up at the shop with him all the time. I was around trucks, transports, and
where was the shop? Close to home?
In St. Thomas, about 7 clicks from home, kind of in town. Yeah. I had a big yard. I think it was, I want to say 6, maybe 6 acres. The shop, yard, and so on, because Elgin Motor Freight was big. They ended up having over 100 tractors and almost 200 trailers at that moment by the time they were done. So
right.
It was a big yard, and that's kind of where it all began for me when I was about 5, 6 years old. My neighbor next door to the truck shop was Norm Dean. He owned Dino Towing. Okay. And he had what they called a look car, a little Renault. Okay. Made by Renault.
Like a little open wheel car?
No, it was like a 4-speed little, I don't know, almost like a smart car. Okay. But it was made by Renault.
Okay.
And it was like called a look car, a street car. Yes, 100%. Yeah. And he had it over there in his yard, and he told my dad, he said, why don't we give this to DJ and let him just drive around the yard in it? Right. And it was a standard. And like I say, I was 5, 6 years old, and I just drove around that truck shop yard thinking I was the king. Yeah. It was, all my buddies would want to come and ride with me in this car, and we'd drive around. And we'd drive the truck drivers nuts. Naturally, they're trying to back trailers in, and they got to watch out for this kid driving around behind them, and because I didn't know any better. Right. But that's kind of how the driving part of it got started for me. It was Norm Dean next door to me, and a lot of the truck drivers and stuff too. Kind of took a liking to helping me when I was so young to get going and, driving. I was driving transports when I was 6 years old. Really? And I'd have to let all the air out of the seat so I could reach the pedals, and I'd almost have to stand up once I got it rolling. To see. So I could see. Yeah. But I spent a lot of time there with my dad and with the business and so on, and it grew. I was washing trucks, greasing trucks, servicing trucks. That was my job. All the way up through probably until I was like 16 years old. So
when did racing start, or when were you first exposed to racing?
5 years old, same thing. My dad asked me if I wanted to go-kart racing.
Okay. And why was that something he was looking at?
I think it's just because of the fact that he saw that I had a love for automobiles, right. For driving. And he wanted to get me more experience. He told me that the main reason was he wanted me to be able to be ready when I got on the street. Okay. He just wanted me to have driving experience. And so we had a friend of ours, his name was Chuck Walker, that had a racing kart. It was a Comet race kart. And we raced on dirt out at close to my home in Glanworth. It was right beside a pig barn. It was called Smybird Speedway. Huey Smybird owned it. And my dad bought me it was a 5-horse Honda. Okay. Yeah. We went out there and started in the rookie class, and we went out and raced beside the pig barn. And after about, I think it was almost 6 weeks, the first 6 weeks, they asked me if I'd move up. to a different class because I was having quite a bit of success.
You'd already been driving for years.
Well, that's the thing. And I didn't know any better. Being a kid, I didn't know. I mean, I was just out there having a blast, you know? And so we ended up moving up very fast. And I think that helped me a ton. I started racing with men when I was 7.
Wow.
And to this day, a lot of the farmers and so on that raced out there, like they had it as a hobby. Like, you know, when they were done work, they'd go out and race, and that was their fun. And to this day, I'm still friends like with a lot of them. Quite a few have passed away because they were quite a bit older than me. But yeah, I'm still friends with a lot of those guys today, and that's kind of how the racing bug started. I started racing go-karts out at Smyburg Speedway. So by in those days, that's pretty darn young to start racing. It was, and I had, like I say, I was so naive. I had no idea. When my dad asked me if I wanted to race a go-kart, I was thinking a shopping cart. Like, I didn't even know what a go-kart was. You know, I had no idea. Until I actually looked at one and got in it and started driving it around. Well, then we had, you know, play carts and stuff for the shop, or I'd drive around the yard in the play cart and so on. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And we had success at it. And my dad told me that at a young age, he saw things that I was doing in the go-kart that I shouldn't know how to do. And that's how it just kept going. You know, the racing bug had bit me, and I loved it. It was I think it was every Tuesday night. So we had success there, I think, for the first year or year and a half. And then my dad built me my own track in the yard at the truck shop. The back part that wasn't being used yet, we turned it into a go-kart track. And when we started that, we built it, and then we started it. We had 4 carts the first night, and it was basically all my buddies. I mean, it was just friends, mechanics that work for my dad, their kids, and we had 4 carts. And we did that, I want to say, all the way till I was 16, until I started racing stock cars. We had that go-kart track going. And
you had guys coming out and racing?
By the time we were done, we had 125 carts the last night.
You guys started your own kart club?
Yeah, we had five classes.
Holy cow.
We had 125 carts that raced there, and it was crazy. Like, we didn't charge anything for spectators or anything like that, and they'd line the whole streets. Like, they were lined up for a couple kilometers.
Did you guys get complaints?
Oh, absolutely. It was in town, but it was like in an industrial area. So, I mean, but it just grew and grew and grew, and it was unbelievable. By the end of it, it was crazy. Because there wasn't a lot of places around to race. So we had this dirt track. And
so that's where you did all your racing. Wow.
I never ever raced asphalt. I ran dirt carts the whole time. I never went and did road racing on carts or anything like that. It just started there. That's all we had time for with the truck shop and so on.
What was school like for you at that time? Were you missing a lot of school?
Not really. I mean, we raced every Tuesday night. I was working for my dad a lot. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't a big school guy. I mean, I was more hands-on. My dad taught me how to work early. I was really into being a truck mechanic and so on. And I probably should have, you know, done a little more schooling than what I did. But, you know, we got to grade 12, and I was working so much then that and working for Dad, and that as soon as I was done school, I was just full-time. I was full-time working when I was at school.
Right.
So, yeah, that's kind of how it all went. But the go-karting took off crazy.
So what did the jump look like to full-size cars? And did you guys, like, you know, you're 15, 16, did you know it was coming?
We did. When I was 14, my dad bought our first Cascar.
Okay. So a Cascar.
A Cascar. He bought it from Barry Harmer.
Okay.
That had been racing. And there was a truck driver named Bob Hume that had been racing the Cascar series for a few years, and he had the Castrol sponsorship.
Okay.
So Bob was actually getting to the point where he couldn't afford to do it anymore and was going to be getting out of it.
Right.
So my dad said to Bob, we actually did work on Bob's trucks.
Okay.
He was a truck driver. So my dad said to Bob, look, I'm going to buy this Harmer car and trailer. You race it and drive it and teach DJ the ropes. So when he turns 16, he'll take over, and he'll have an idea of what he's got to do. My dad didn't want me to just get in it and, be just the driver.
Sure.
He wanted me to know how it all worked, how the series worked, what you had to do when you went to Delaware on Friday nights, how the tech system worked.
Right.
He just wanted me to be prepared, and that's what we did. So when I was 14 years old, I started practicing the car at Delaware on Friday afternoons. Tony Novotny let me go in there and practice the car before anybody got there.
Right.
And then that night, Bob would race it.
Okay.
So I would get some laps in every Friday, and then Bob would take over racing. And the deal was, when I was 16, Bob would help us and take over basically crew chiefing for me for at least a year.
Okay.
And teach me how to do it. So
wow.
I went right from karts to a Cascar.
With a good amount of sponsorship.
Very much so. That was the deal. We made the deal with Bob that Castor will come with it. And here we are, 31 years later.
Wow.
Castor's still with me. So that's how it all started. And to put it into perspective, the first deal we did with Castor was $10,000.
Okay, for the season.
For the season. And that's how it all started with the Cascar Super Series. And that was run in Delaware Friday nights, the Cascar Super Series, the West, you name it. So,
wow. So your dad was funding the rest?
Yeah. My dad, with our truck shop and with his personal.
Yeah. And you guys are, I assume, piecing together smaller sponsors at the time?
100%. Trying everything we did. We had Team Truck Centers came on board, and Cummins, we had them, just people that we dealt with in business.
Right.
We went after them and tried to get us to help us with that, and that's how we made it happen. My dad's partner, Jim Waldy, that owned Elgin Motor Freight, he helped us out with the truck. He gave us a straight truck to use, and we turned the back into a bunk system, and we pulled a tag trailer for the first, I'm going to say, it's got to be the first 6-7 years.
Okay.
Before we actually went to a 53-foot, tractor trailer. But that's how it all began. There were so many people, Gary, that helped us get started.
Right.
Even to build our race shop. A friend of ours that we dealt with all the time with trucks and so on, again, Gord Tuck from St. Thomas. He owned a cement company and our cement trucks, and he poured cement. Well, he poured the floor in my shop for me and didn't charge us for it.
Wow.
We had another, and then he knew builders that would put up the pole barn and stuff that we built around the shop, and it basically, we had the shop up for next to nothing.
Right.
Without that, we couldn't have done it. I
Yeah,
mean,
for
there was,
sure.
and when I first started right in my backyard, we actually cut a hole in the fence, and I drove my car through to McCall Racing. Like, Mike's shop was basically right in my backyard, and I would drive the car over there for help with setups and so on.
Okay.
And there was so many people throughout those years, the early years, that I can't even thank all of them enough, because I wouldn't have got to where I was.
Right. How did the first season go as far as being competitive?
We ran Delaware on Friday nights, and then we tried to run the Super Series, and obviously the Super Series was tough. I mean, there was a lot of big names. Dan Shirtlift and Paul Mathers and, Earl Ross, Peter Gibbons.
Yep.
There were some big hitters, and like my rookie year in the Super Series, I raced Earl Ross and Peter Gibbons for Rookie of the Year.
Oh, geez.
Well, Peter Gibbons had already run ARCA and everything else, and obviously Earl was a Cup, Rookie of the Year in Cup and won a Cup race. So we were in tough. He had Earl had sponsorship from Ford, Quality Care, and Gibbons was sponsored by Canadian Tire.
Yep.
We
good
were
money.
And obviously Peter had a lot of help from down south and so on. And not to take anything away, Peter Gibbons was probably one of the best race car drivers I've ever raced with.
Yeah.
But we ended up finishing second for the Rookie of the Year.
Okay.
And first night at Delaware, we won our first heat race. So here I thought, man, I'm going to kick these guys' ass. I'm the man. And then we got to the feature where everybody was, and it wasn't so easy. I think we finished 12th or 13th on the first Friday night. But on the Friday nights, they were getting 30 cars.
Wow.
So they were getting 30 cars. There was sometimes a last chance race on a Friday night to get into the feature. So
wow.
We were doing okay, but it was mainly because of all the help I had. Mike McCall early in my career helped me a ton, and a lot of guys, Bob Hume. He was just a book of knowledge. He'd been racing Cascar for years.
Right.
So I stepped into a situation where I actually had a decent piece to drive and was really fortunate.
Yeah. So how do you start, maybe after that first year, how do you start to conceptualize racing as or how do you conceptualize it? Is it a career? Is it I'm going to work, still full time with my dad? How is that all going to shake down as far as your time goes?
It was tough early. We ended up getting a contract at Sterling Truck Plant with a tow truck.
Okay.
And my dad and I basically did 24 hours, 7 days a week. We had to be on call for Sterling Truck Manufacturing in St. Thomas. And we got that contract through Norm Dean, Dino's Towing, the guy that basically got me started in driving. And we bought the wrecker from him. And at that time, it was Freightliner when we first started there. And then it swapped over to Sterling. And we were on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. And we did it for 16 years.
Holy cow.
And there was a time there when they switched over from Freightliner to Sterling, it started off, it was 10 calls a week.
Right.
You have to go over to the assembly line, pull a truck off that, the cab got screwed up in paint.
Okay.
So there's no cab on the truck. So you got to go over and hook the frame and the motor and pull it off the line and go park it outside. And then when they get all the parts, they call you and you tow it and put it back inside to the bays so they can put it back together.
Right.
So, I mean, it was, it was good at the start. It was, maybe 10 times a week.
Right.
I had a pager. It would go off every once in a while, and that was that. But as it grew and as the plant grew and as they started doing 3 shifts, they were 24 hours, it got to the point where it was pretty steady.
Right.
Like it was steady. So, I mean, I would work from usually about 8 o'clock at night till 4 in the morning on Sterling.
Yeah.
That was my baby. My dad would come back into work at 4 in the morning. I'd go home and sleep, and then I'd come back in at noon, and I would work from noon till 8 on race cars or in the truck shop, whatever we needed.
Right.
If we were real busy and stuff needed to be done in the truck shop, I'd help them as much as I could. And then if it wasn't too bad, I'd be working on race cars. So it was like a constant battle, and then all night while I was there, if I wasn't at Sterling, I'd be working on race cars.
Right.
So we did that for a long time, and it was tough. I mean, one of us had to be there all the time. So when I was away racing, Gary, I would go to the Hooters Pro Cup races, and it was a little later on in my career, 2003, 2004. I was running in the States quite a bit.
Right.
And plus all the Friday nights at Delaware, and then we were running a Quebec Sportsman Series.
Holy
and
cow.
the Cascar stuff. We were doing a lot of racing, and my dad, we finally put a cot in the motor room at the race shop so that, because he was covering Sterling 24 hours a day.
Holy cow.
While I was gone. And so he would sleep when he could in the motor room. He'd just grab a couple hours on the cot, and then when the phone would ring, he'd have to go.
Wow.
So that's what we had to do, though, to make it happen. There was no question of whether I was going to race full time or if I was going to help my dad. It's this is what we have to do to make it happen.
Right.
It's the only way we could get enough money to generate to make it happen.
Right.
So my dad was a freaking machine, man. I mean, I look at it now and think about it. My dad had me when he was older.
How old was he?
My dad now is 84.
How old was he when he had you?
So I'm 47. So,
yeah.
He's 43 years old when he had me.
Wow.
So when I'm doing this, he's already 56, 57 years old, 58 years old.
Grinding
24 hours a day. I look at it now. I don't know how he did it. It blows my mind. My dad and I are like your dad and you. We're close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've done everything together.
Right.
He's my best friend. He's made everything happen for me that could possibly happen. He built my engines because we couldn't afford to pay somebody to build engines. So he built all my engines for racing for forever.
Wow.
I mean, until probably up to the last maybe 3-4 years, he's done all my engines. We've done everything in our power to keep the cost down.
Yep.
And be able to still go racing.
Right.
And because I fell in love with it. I mean, I was a lot of guys at home, if they ever hear this, will probably say I'm lying, but I was a pretty good hockey player.
Right.
And I really possibly had a chance maybe to go a little bit in hockey. Who knows how far.
Sure.
But when I was 16, I got hurt. I took a skate in the knee and took 180 stitches. And that was my draft year. And, I mean, that was when I made the decision right then.
Right. At 16,
My dad made me. He's like, DJ, you're playing hockey or you're going racing.
Right.
What's it going to be?
Well, you can't do both.
That's what he said. Not at the level.
Yeah.
He said that, I'm playing hockey 4 or 5 times a week.
Yep.
He's like, you got to make a choice. And at that time I was pissed off because I just got hurt.
Right.
And I said to myself, I've never been hurt in a race car. I'm going racing. And I loved racing, man.
Yeah.
It was in me. Like I don't know how to explain it. You know.
Yeah.
You're the same thing. I mean, when you get in a race car, there's just no feeling quite like it. Mm-hmm. It's like I was hooked, man. So that's when I made the decision to go racing, and I've never been able to actually make it a full-time deal until I would say within the last 8 years.
Right. So
like even up to that point, I had jobs. Like I went and worked for Southwold Township for 10 years.
How did that come about? So just when your dad retired and the business wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, we decided, we talked about it. I was going to maybe take the business over.
Right.
And my dad's with the way the trucking industry was going and so on, he said he wouldn't wish it on his worst enemy. So he just told me, he says, why don't you work hard at try to go racing? And I had a good opportunity with a friend of mine that I could get a job at the township, and it worked out good because I worked all the hours I could in the winter. I mean, I would plow until I couldn't stand up anymore, just so that I could bank time so that I could have time off in the summer to go racing.
So good, flexible job.
It worked out perfect for me. I mean, the township was great too. They understood what I was doing. They let me work as many hours as I could in the winter. And then I had enough holidays and stuff that I could take the time off to go racing in the summer.
Right.
So it worked out good. But then it just got to the point when I started doing rental deals and so on that my wife was the one that told me, she's like, DJ, she's like, you go to work and then you come home and work. It's all you do is work.
Right.
She's like, there's basically no time for her for anything.
Sure. Yeah.
And I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and she said, when you go to your other work, all you're worrying about is this work. She said, so like you're miserable.
Right.
And she was right. Like I was grouchy because I had guys in the shop working on race cars and I'm out doing what I don't want to do.
Right.
So she's like, why, if you can make a go at this and make a living at racing, why wouldn't you do it? Mm-hmm. She said, it's your passion. It's you. It's what you do. And that's what set it off. I was like, you know what? You're right. The hell with it. I'm going to try to make it happen. I was worried about pensions and everything else farther down the road in life. And, a couple of my good friends died at a young age. And they're like, you know what? Live every day, man. Like, who knows how long you're going to. Don't worry about retiring yet. He said, worry about today.
Right.
Do what you want to do. Do what you love. And that's kind of what I did. And the racing thing took off. I mean, we had a lot of good rental programs, did a lot of one-off stuff. And then I had a lot of stuff. Got lucky with the Mopar program.
Right.
Picked up Ranger and had a real good program there with 2 teams. And then ran a season with you.
Yep.
Doing the oval stuff. I mean, that stuff there is what I enjoyed.
Right.
Like I love it. I mean, even when you're competing against each other or competing against your cars, it gave me great satisfaction. If I didn't win, you sure as hell better.
Sure.
That's the way I looked at it.
Yep.
That's the way I wanted it to work because then more people are going to want to come.
Yep.
More people are going to want to do it.
Do you think that mindset for so long, like the blue collar mindset, hey, I need a job. I'm not going to be, trying to make a living racing. Do you think that held you back at all?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I wish there's ways I wouldn't change anything, honestly. But there's days where you think, well, maybe if I would have started sooner. I met a guy years and years ago, Dwight Kennedy.
Okay.
Dwight Kennedy changed my racing career. Dwight's from Edson, Alberta. He owns Northern Provincial Pipelines. Had his own dirt series out there that he raced in Edmonton.
Okay.
And they were having a lot of problems with Dodge motors. And they were having an oiling issue. And Louis Bazio was building all of his engines, and he built Kevin Dowler's engines that raced in the Cascar stuff. So it's kind of a racing circle. Everybody knows everybody. So Louis was talking with Dwight, and Dwight is pro Dodge. He owned a Dodge dealership. Everything is Dodge. Okay. I mean, the guy would have it tattooed on his forehead like he is a Dodge man. So they were having some problems with the motor. So Louis called my dad. Louis talked to Louis, said, what are you guys doing with it? Because that's all I've ever run was Dodge. My dad told him a couple tricks that you had to do to keep the main bearings lubed up and so on, so that you didn't have that problem and didn't kick the rods out of it and so on. So he helped Louis help Dwight with his problem. So I was on my way out west one year, and my dad sent a block with me to drop off at Louis, a race block, to get machined at Louis, because that's what Louis owned, AMS race engines and so on. He said, Louis is going to machine this block for us, bring it home, I'll put it together. So he said, drop it off on your way to Vernon, and when you come back and race in Edmonton, pick it up in Edmonton, because that's where Louis is from, and so on. So I stopped at Louis. I dropped the block off, and you know me, when I get on the road,
don't want to stop.
I want to go.
Yeah.
You know, I like you. I don't want to go. When we're trucking. When we get there, we'll stop.
Yeah.
But Louis was all over me to stop at Dwight Kennedy's. You got to stop and say hi to Dwight. You got to stop, say hi to Dwight. So, you know me. I'm like, I'm not stopping to say hi to Dwight. He's like, DJ, it's right on the highway. I'm telling you, stop and see Dwight. I pull into this Northern Provincial Pipelines. I go in and meet this guy named Dwight Kennedy. Comes out. I didn't know what to think. I mean, he's wearing like a tank top. He's got his socks pulled up to his knees. He's got loafers on. And I don't even know this guy. And he comes out and he says, you're DJ? And I said, yeah. He said, I'm Dwight. Nice to meet you. I said, nice to meet you. Takes me in, shows me his car collection. The guy's got probably, I think, 18 muscle cars in there. He's got an original Hemi Cuda with 91 original miles on it. I'm like, I was blown away.
Yeah.
You know, it's like coming in here.
Yeah.
Looking at vehicles like, holy cow.
Guy's personal deal, though.
Yeah, this is like, this is all his stuff. And he's got it all in a shop that's hooked to his house. So I checked those all out, check his hauler out, his dirt hauler, beautiful Peterbilt, freaking all marble inside. I mean, nice program. So I'm like, holy cow, this is pretty cool. Shows me his race program. He's got like 15 dirt cars in this shop. He maintains and does the whole series. A lot of the guys just leave their cars there, pay him to do it, or well, his guys to do it, whatever. So he said, you need a place to work in your car when you come back, stop here. I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty good, actually. Yeah. So I go to Vernon, race, come back, getting ready for Edmonton, stop at Dwight's. I roll my pit cart out. He says, this your pit cart? I said, yeah. Dwight says, it's a piece of shit. You know what? You're right. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. But that's all I can do, man. Like, you know. And then he left. And I thought, man, that's kind of rude. But whatever. You know, I'm using his shop. He's letting me use his beautiful shop here to work on my cars. About 20 minutes later, he comes back with a four-wheeler, pulling a brand-new pit cart. Brand-new snap-on toolbox in it, all chrome wheels. Like just a gorgeous pit cart. Pulls it up. It's all wrapped red and white, Northern Provincial Pipelines. He says, here, put all your stuff in this. I said, Dwight, I can't afford that. Yeah. He said, I didn't ask you if you could afford it. I told you to put all your stuff in this. And I was like, well, like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't afford it. He says, you can't afford not to. Put all your stuff in there. Do as you're told. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Who is this guy? You know, I really don't even know this guy yet. Yeah. So I go to put it in my hauler. It won't fit. It's 2 inches too tall. Well, he takes off, comes back 20 minutes later, 4 brand new chrome rims and tires, 2 inches shorter. Put them on this thing, take the pit cart home. Gives me car covers, gives me all this stuff and so on. I'm like, man, this guy is such a super, super guy. Like, I'm so glad I stopped and met him. So I get home from that trip, Gary, and I get a phone call from Randy McDonald in the Busch Series. And he says, DJ, I was wondering if you'd like to come drive my Busch car at Bristol. And I'm like, well, yeah. He said, well, you come up with the tire money, you can drive at Bristol. So I'm thinking, oh, wow, this is great. Couple grand. I'm going to run a Busch car. Yeah. Well, tire bill naturally is $12,000. Well, yeah. And I didn't have $12,000. So I started making phone calls. And I called actually Chaco. I called Hackinson's. Yep. They offered to help me out a bit. Castrol, obviously. They offered to help me out a little bit. And I got thinking to myself, man, I'm going to call Dwight. So I called Dwight. And he says, I told him the deal. And he says, who's Randy McDonald? I said, well, he's a Canadian from here. He's actually from Oshawa originally. Been racing down there for a few years. He got hurt himself, so he's not driving, but he still has a race team, blah, blah, blah. He says, give me his phone number. 10 minutes later, Randy McDonald calls me. He says, I don't know who this Dwight guy is, but you're all set. Paid the whole shot. Wow. And that got me my first start down south in an Xfinity car, well, a Busch car at the time.
What year was that?
That would have been 2000, I want to say 2006.
Okay.
And I went down there, went to Bristol. 47 cars for the Busch race. Qualified 37th. Missed the show by I think it was a half a hundredth, right? Now I'm scared. I got to call Dwight and tell him I didn't make the race and so on.
Right.
So I called Dwight. I said, Dwight, sorry, bud, I didn't make the race. He said, well, why not? I said, well, there's 46 cars here. I'd never been in one. And not going to lie to you, Randy's stuff's pretty used up. But, you know, I did my best. And he says, what kind of car was it? I said, it was a Chevrolet. He said, that's your freaking problem. So I didn't think anything of it. I get a phone call the next week. Come pick me up at the airport in Toronto. Like, Dwight, I'm working.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be in Toronto, and I think it was 4 o'clock. Pick me up. Okay, didn't call me, tell me nothing. I go pick him up. He's got a plane ticket for me to go to North Carolina. He takes me down there. We met Randy. We went to Rusty Wallace Racing. Mm-hmm. Bought 2 Dodges, Xfinity cars. Went to Chip Ganassi Racing, bought another chassis and from them and 2 engines. And all in a matter of 8 hours.
Jeez.
The man went and bought all this stuff for me to go racing down south. And
did he explain the deal at all, or just kind of
nothing.
Went and did this?
Just wanted to go racing, wanted me to go racing. He's always wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Appreciated what my dad did for him.
Right.
And it's a relationship that started. And he changed my whole racing career. Like,
sure.
I mean, it got me so much experience.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. But that's how that happened.
Right.
And then I had an opportunity to run full time in the Xfinity Series
with that team that you guys
with
built.
Randy and everything else. And I didn't leave. I wanted to run full time, but Castrol had done too much for me to get to that point in my career.
Right, in the Cascar deal.
In the Cascar deal, that I couldn't walk away from it. So I missed, I think, 4 or 5 of the Busch races that year.
Right, but you
come
ran
home and run
30 some odd.
Yeah, I think I ran 27 or 28 that year. And then I ran home, and that would be 2008, I do believe.
Okay.
Came home and ran the Cascar stuff in between.
Yep.
And never missed a race because Castrol meant too much to me.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't have had those opportunities with Dwight. I wouldn't have been out west. I wouldn't have done anything without them.
Right.
So I didn't feel right. And people were all over me. Like, why would you miss a Busch race to run the Cascar? Because without the Cascar, I wouldn't be there.
Right.
Like, it just, in my brain, my blue-collar brain, it didn't make sense to me.
And looking back on it, would you have done it differently?
No, but I'd wish I met Dwight maybe 10 years sooner.
Sure, yeah.
You know, because the guy he gave me those opportunities. And it ended up being, it was 50 Xfinity starts. I've had 50 Xfinity starts, 10 truck starts, 10 Cup starts. My first Cup race in the 55 car for Premium Motorsports, Dwight funded it.
Wow.
It was wrapped all MPP. Phoenix was his track. He's from Edmonton. He went there every year. He took his customers there. He took his, some employees, but he had a suite there. He'd been going there for years. So it was a perfect fit. And he was a NASCAR fan.
Right.
And then this opportunity came up, and it changed everything for me. Like I say, all those starts, all that stuff down there is because of Dwight Kennedy.
Wow.
And because of what my dad did.
Right.
To meet Dwight Kennedy and to help Dwight Kennedy, he helped me, and obviously helped me way more than I could ever repay.
Oh.
I was blown away when I walked into Rusty Wallace. I'm like, God, that's a nice car, and these are 2 that are for sale, and he bought them. So then my next race was Memphis, and we went down there with it was a Rusty Wallace car. Actually, no, it was the Ganassi car, CGR 451. Still remember it. And we went down there, and there was 54 cars at Memphis.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and we qualified 23rd. And I remember calling my dad. That was I was big.
Yeah.
And I remember he didn't believe me. He said, "It's okay, bud." He said, we'll try next time if you get another shot. I was like, "Dad, turn the damn TV on. I'm racing. We made it."
Yep.
Just silence on the other end. He's like, "You made it." I was like, "Yeah, we're in. We're way in."
Yep.
We actually got a decent piece here. And that's how it all started down south for me. And that's, like I say, kind of wish that had happened earlier.
Sure.
But kind of wish it wouldn't, because everything that's gone on in my career, to have Castrol still, to have that relationship, you can't replace that.
Right.
How many people can say that in motorsports or in any sport?
No one. Yeah.
You know, like 31 years. That's a long time. And they're family now. And that decision I made back then, I'm very, very glad I did because of what I'm doing now.
Right.
And where my career went.
Right.
Ended up getting the opportunity to run the Daytona 500 because of Castrol.
Yep.
They made that happen. Would never have ever have dreamed of that. I was 40 years old when that happened.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that it's a little past when you'd think it's going to happen.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah. So so you were never fully committed to going down to the States?
No.
Right.
I just couldn't afford it.
Yep.
Couldn't leave my dad.
Mm.
I don't know why. It was a bond we had. I very well could have if I had the right opportunity, I think.
Sure.
But I did go down there for almost the whole 2008, which was tough. I mean, my dad paid me. That's the only money I had was my wage from my dad.
Right.
To be down there. And Dwight obviously helping with. I lived in a microtel hotel in Thomasville, North Carolina for like 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so, but we were doing it. I worked on my own cars. I painted my own car. The first Xfinity race I ran at Daytona, I helped paint my own race car at Randy's shop. And the opportunity Randy gave me was huge.
Right.
And obviously Dwight coming on board helped Randy.
Right.
It helped his business.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was, you know, I never had that opportunity to, you know, I don't know how to put it, to drive for a Gibbs or a Hendrick or,
sure.
You know, always was with a team like, you know, Premium or Randy or whatever, but I wouldn't change it because they're all good people.
Right.
They're all my friends today. You drove for Premium.
Yep.
I mean, we kind of worked on that deal together.
Yep.
They're good people.
Yep.
I mean, they don't have the funding or the, you know, the engineering and stuff that the big dogs do, but they do a lot with a little.
Right.
So that's kind of the way I've been.
Yep.
I've tried to do a lot with a little. And so I respect what those guys do. And people would ask me, why would you want to go down there and run 30th? Well, yeah, I know I'm going there to run 30th in the Xfinity race or 25th or whatever, but it's better than sitting at home on the couch and watching it. All the experience I'm getting, the speeds. You know, I did that 2008, 2009, 2010 came up here and
you guys whooped everyone.
Waxed them.
Yeah.
I mean, everything I'd learned down there, the driving experience, the speeds, it was just experience. It was laps. It was miles.
Right. And looking at it, you know, so many guys get, not so many guys, but there's different ways to look at it. You know, you could go and pay a whole ton of money and have one shot in a car that has the potential to win. But having not run a handful of races before, you're not going to do it.
Exactly. I didn't have the experience.
Yeah.
I didn't have the, you know, I look at it like, I don't know. When I first started in the deal down there in the Busch Series, I was racing for 35th, 30th every week with Brad Keselowski.
Yeah.
Brad was driving whatever he could drive, same as I was. A lot of times having to pay to drive.
Yep.
And, you know, look at the guy now. He's one of the most successful Cup drivers there is.
Yep.
And business people. And, I mean, I raced with him.
Yep.
And when we were in the same stuff, we were battling for 35th. You know what I mean? Same thing when I went to Premium. Ross Chastain was there.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, he was.
You know, and I was racing with Ross. And obviously Ross a lot of times beat me, but there was a few times, you know, Martinsville, Phoenix, I beat Ross.
Yep.
And look at him now. I mean, obviously it's, you know, he's got a ton of talent and he's very successful. So I do the comparisons to that, you know, once he's in good equipment and in the best stuff, he's good.
Yeah.
So do I think we could have made a run at it? Possibly. Do you know? No. Nobody knows because those guys are all good, man.
Yeah.
They're all like, even up here.
Yeah. Like
it's crazy, the talent level. And, you know, people ask you, why are you not winning? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Well, it's not easy, man. There's so many people that are so good that never get an opportunity.
100%.
You don't know. Like they could have been a Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
You don't know. And nobody does. Like I even look at you, the amount of experience you have racing. Look what you do.
Yep.
You go out there and you're damn good.
Right.
You know, even the year you ran full oval deal with me, like you don't have the experience that we got. You ran with all of us.
Right.
Like it's just like maybe if you had the right opportunity 5 years before that, you'd be the champ. Like it's just, you know, like you don't know.
You don't know. No. You don't know till you get that many races under your belt. And yeah.
Got a lot of races under my belt, Gary.
Yep. Yeah, you do. You got a lot more than me. And it's one of those things, it's such a funny sport where you can't just go to the driving range and just do it. You can't. And that's why every opportunity I got, I took. Mm-hmm. A lot of the people along the way that helped me, like Castrol's obviously number one. I mean, come on. They've made my racing career what it is, and I will, till I'm blue in the face, back that company, support them every way I can, because they've done everything in my racing career. Right.
And then you get the people like Dwight Kennedy's, you know, my dad. There's so many. Brian Cascar, like even Brian gives me licenses my trucks every year. Right. I mean, you know, and I know how expensive that is. For him to do that and take the opportunity or take that chance with me, with my hauler and so on, I can't do it without him.
Yep. Yep.
You can't thank everybody in this sport that has helped you along the way.
Yeah.
With everything that I have done and all the races I've been to, I can't even thank everybody, but everybody that I've, you know, has had a piece in it, I thank them. Yep. Because I can't do it without them. Like 90% of it's volunteers.
100%. Yep.
You know, like I couldn't afford to pay people.
Yep.
All the people that helped me along, like crew members and like local guys and sponsors and people just do stuff for nothing. You can't do it without it.
Yep.
There's no way I would have ever succeeded to where we are now without it.
Yeah. No, it takes a community and bunch of people loving what you're doing, right?
I can't explain it. And then, like I say, I met my wife through racing. She's actually J.R. Fitzpatrick's cousin. Right. It's a funny, quick story for you, Gary. I met my wife at Barrie Speedway. Okay. JR's very first win. So Don Thompson was leading. I was running second. There was, I don't know. Did you ever race Barrie?
I ran a TQ midget there once.
Well, yeah, that's what it's built for. Yeah. Not Cascars.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a melee coming off of turn 4, and I got under Thompson, and Thompson spun and wrecked pretty bad. And I got blamed for that. I got black flagged. Okay. Actually. So while I was black flagged, I come down pit road and had to miss the last 3 laps of the race. And I'm pulling off, and there's this girl literally on the fence calling me every name in the book and screaming at me. And as I drove by, I thought, man, she's pretty cute. You know, I was like, she's really angry. So that is my wife. Today, she was obviously mad because I wrecked Don Thompson, which her uncle John Fitzpatrick owned his car. Right. And I don't know why she was so mad because it got JR's first win. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it was a win-win. Yep. But
that's funny.
Yeah, that's how I met my wife. I thought, man, I really like her, and I ended up talking to her and so on.
You calmed her down?
Yeah. Who won that battle? Hey, from hating me and to marrying her. So
that's good.
Yeah. So racing has been a huge part of my life.
Yeah. Tell me about what changed, or what did you guys find in that 2010 season and then 2012 again? Like, you guys whooped everyone. I remember I had run my first race in 2009, and then I really started to pay attention. I took all my buddies from university out to the Moseport Oval. I said, see that guy there? He went to the back twice, I think. He's going to win.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. I remember that race. I passed Don Thompson late for the win, and Donnie was really good at Mossport. You know what? It was a combination of spring stuff that we had learned down there. Probably one of the first ones to go pretty soft, almost pretty much coil binding. We were literally just touching the left front, and our cars were phenomenal. I mean, we just hit on it. And it was because of everything. Basically, we took everything that we had in the Xfinity short track program that I learned down there, and I put it in the car up here. And the real soft springs, the bigger sway bar, bigger right rear spring, the car turned and it had drive like crazy. And obviously my dad building motors, we had great HP sauce. And the experience from down south, I think, was the biggest thing. I mean, from running 180 miles an hour on these 1.5 miles to going to run a Mosport, seems like you're stopped.
Right. Feels slow. You can be precise.
Yeah, everything just came to me. And I mean, we were competitive before that. I mean, I think we were the Mark Martin. I mean, we finished second like 5 or 6 times in points.
Yeah.
But that year it just all came together, and it was so fun. Obviously not for everybody else, but it was fun for me. It was fun for my race team.
Yeah.
Fun for Castrol finally.
Yeah.
To get them that championship that they obviously deserved for putting up with me for that many years. But it just all came together. I mean, obviously Whitey was my crew chief at that time. He was young, came to work for me, and we just clicked. I mean, it was I look back at it now, those between 10, 11, and 12.
Right. Yeah.
Were pretty solid seasons.
Yeah.
And you don't get them very often.
No. Things change.
Once you have that horseshoe, if you can keep it, it's great. But once you lose it, it's very hard to find it.
Yep. Yeah. Always got to keep working. Tell me about the Daytona 500. Obviously, that's a bucket list race for anyone who races anything. Doesn't matter what you race. How did that deal come about?
I was not feeling well. I remember it was January. Actually, it was mid-December. I wasn't feeling well, and it was a Castrol Christmas party.
Okay.
And I said to Jamie, my wife, hon, I'm not going to go. I said, I'm just going to go to bed. And I remember she handed me a bottle of Advil Cold and Sinus. She said, take 2 of these and get your ass to that party. They support you.
Yep.
Go support them. You're right. 100%. Suck it up, Buttercup. Let's go. Mm-hmm. So I went to that party. I was hanging out, talking, and that was right after I had run Phoenix. Okay. I ran Phoenix in November.
In the Busch car?
In the Cup car.
Oh, in the Cup car.
That was my first Cup start in Cup.
Yeah, with NPP.
With NPP on board and so on, and driving for premium.
Yep.
And so on. And I remember Dave Fifield from Wakefield, Castrol, the president, owner, part owner or whatever, and he came up to me and said, hey, congratulations on the Cup start. We're so proud of you. We've been with you a long time. Like, you finally, I know that's been a dream of yours. And I said, absolutely. I said, it was everything I could have hoped for. Yeah. I mean, I loved every minute of it, and it was so cool. And I had gotten a call from Jay Robinson that owned Premium, and he had asked me if I wanted to run the Daytona 500. And he said, you did such a good job at Phoenix. He said, we'd love to have you in the Cup car. If you can come up with the engine lease money, we'd like to put you in the Cup car for the 500. So, me being me thinking, that's probably like $30,000. See what we can do here.
Yep.
Well, and I know it's a lot more than $30,000.
Yeah.
So when I got the number, I was like, well, that's not happening.
Yep.
So I was at that Christmas party, and I told Dave that I had such a good experience running the Cup race and so on. And I said, a Premium called me and said, I have an opportunity to run the Daytona 500. And he said, oh, that's great. Good for you. Or, awesome. That's great. And then he kind of turned away, and then he stopped and he turned back. He said, did you say the Daytona 500? I was like, yeah. He said, like the Cup race, not the Xfinity race, the Cup race. I said, yeah, the Cup race. Like, and then he's like, the Daytona 500. I said, yeah. Well, he turned to there was like, I think 5 or 6 of them standing there, and they were talking in a lot of language I didn't understand, Gary. It was business.
Sure, yeah.
And he turned around and he stuck his hand out, and he said, you call them and tell them we got your back for the 500.
Wow.
And just telling you that gave me chills again, because I remember I was like, I didn't know what to think. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to think. And then the pressure started to hit already. I'm like, well, what if I don't qualify?
Right.
Like, there's so many things here. Like, this is crazy. So I wanted to call Jay Robinson right away. Say, hey, you know, we've got the sponsorship. We're going to do this and so on. And I wanted to call my dad. And then I'm like, no, let's just get this in check.
Yeah.
Like, this is a long ways away yet. But I got thinking to myself, you know, it's a Christmas party. Maybe Dave's drunk. Like, maybe he doesn't even realize what we just did here.
Right.
And so I went over and sat with one of the girls that was my marketing girl at the time. And I said, Dave just told me that he's got my back for the Daytona 500. She's like, well, I don't know where he's going to find that money. And I said, well, he's the boss. I guess he'll try to find it somewhere. And he literally got up in front of everybody at the Christmas party, thanked me for being there. And he said, we have some exciting news. DJ's going to be running the Daytona 500. Well, I did.
Now you know it's real.
Yeah. I'm like, well, he just announced it to everybody here. I guess I better try to get a car and make sure everything's a go here. And so that's how it happened.
Wow.
So they talked to their partners. Like, you know, they were thinking maybe Canadian Tire, maybe Lordco.
Right.
All their, you know, try to piece this all together. But they said, let us worry about that.
Okay.
We'll do some, you know, marketing with them, trade-offs, this and that, and try to get the money raised. But we'll work on that end. You worry about getting the car and so on. So that's how it was going to happen. So I called Jay Robinson, said, we got the money. And Jay said, well, we got one problem. I got a Toyota car, but I got no engine for it. And now it's pretty late. It's December. I don't think we can get an engine. So now I'm like, oh, no.
Right.
Like, I got this opportunity. If I got to put a Honda in that thing, I'm going to find an engine, you know?
Yeah.
So I called Marty Gaunt, who owned Triad Race Engines at the time.
Yep.
And I said, Marty, if you got a Toyota engine, he's like, what do you got cooking? And I told him, I said, I got an opportunity to run the 500, but I don't have an engine. And he said, neither does Jay. And he said, man, it's getting really late. He said, I don't know if I can have you one done. He said, I might be able to get you a qualifying motor, but I don't think I can get you a Daytona motor. So because they're two separate deals, right?
Right.
And I'm like, well, see what you can do with a qualifying motor. That's the first step. See what you can do. So I hung up the phone from him. And probably maybe 3 hours later, Marty called me back and he said, what have you got for sponsorship? And I said, well, what do you mean? And then he told me his deal. He had just bought a bunch of cars from MWR and they had planned on running the Daytona 500.
Right.
And he's got an engine for himself.
Right.
But he had no driver and he had no sponsor. So they were going to do it on their own, or, you know, they were just early stages. So I called Jay Robinson because Jay obviously gave me the first opportunity and said, hey,
Sure.
Jay, I've got an opportunity with Marty. He's got a motor, but he's planning on running himself. And he said, well, you know what, DJ, I've got another guy that's planning on running too, but he's got a Chev engine. So this might work out for both of us.
Right.
So it did. Jay ended up getting
His
deal for his deal, and then I ended up doing the deal with Marty Gaunt.
Wow.
And Cascar ended up putting together the deal with Lordco.
Yep.
And Lordco, I had no idea. They had been going to the Daytona 500, I think it was for like 25 years, in a suite. But then they found out they had an opportunity to sponsor and have their name on a car, and one of the owners had just passed away. That was a big NASCAR fan that had been going all these years and so on. So it all fit. It all came together, and that's how we got the opportunity to run the 500. And I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't realize how huge it was at the time. I went down to Marty's, and actually Whitey, myself, and Zach, and there was a bunch of us went down there, and we basically moved to North Carolina for a month and started working on the Daytona car, putting it together, and went to the wind tunnel, went testing at Talladega, did everything we could do to go try to qualify for the 500, and Marty was a huge part of that.
Right.
Put a lot of money out of his own money as well. And with Castrol, once again, I mean, the decisions you make early sometimes help you late.
Yep.
And I'm glad I stuck with them because they made that dream come true.
That's cool.
And we made the race, and making the race was exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, we made it by a foot.
I remember,
Yeah, I had to pass Elliott Sadler to get in.
Yep.
And it's pretty surreal. I mean, wish we'd have done better, obviously, in the 500, but that's I wrecked with a lot of big names, so we were obviously in the right spot. So
yeah, it's tough, eh? Always thinking about what you're going to do, if you're going to hang back or if you're going to go race. And
I didn't know what to do because I'd never really had any Cup Series drafting.
Yep.
So, I mean, when we actually got in the big one, we were running 14th. You know, as long as we were in the draft, we were good. We didn't quite have the HP sauce we needed to run on our own or to run by ourselves.
Yeah.
But, man, what an experience. Yeah. It's just an experience thing. Very fortunate to get that opportunity.
So did your dad come down for that?
Nope.
Does he ever come to the track?
Nope. Stays at home, takes care of my house, cuts my grass. Takes care of me, man. Right. I mean, he's getting older, obviously. My dad's 84 now. I remember when I qualified, though, I called him from pit road. Like, I was like, Dad, we did it. Like, this is it. Like, you know, if all the things in motorsports I ever dreamed of doing, running the Daytona 500 is it.
Yeah.
Obviously, winning it's the most important, but I mean, we actually got closer than most, anyways. Yep. But yeah, I mean, all the hard work and sacrifice he made, my family made, my mom, my sisters, all of them. I mean, our lives revolved around my racing. Yeah. And yeah, that was huge. Mm-hmm. Making that phone call was probably the best phone call I've ever made. Yeah. Next to having my kids, you know, that's right there. Yeah. Yeah. That's right there. Kids, obviously, you know that now. There's nothing like it. Yeah. They're the most important thing in your world, and my wife and kids are number one. But that's a dang close second, I'll tell you that.
I bet. What? Speaking of kids, you got a little boy now. How old is he now?
Chase will be 12 in November.
So you obviously, being a good Canadian, you got him in hockey.
He is a hockey crazy. Yeah. My boy loves hockey. He's a lot like me. I mean, he's more into hockey than racing. Okay. He's racing micro sprints. Yeah. Does fairly well. I mean, not gonna lie, he's pretty handy for the experience he has. Mm-hmm. I probably don't help him as much as I should because I'm too busy working on my own stuff. Right. But yeah, my daughter is a cheer. Sure. She's competitive cheer. Actually, my wife is crazy and got her on a cheer team in Cambridge. Yep. We're from St. Thomas.
Oh boy.
So she's a lot of traveling back and forth on the 401, taking her to practices and so on, but she is so good at it. She's going to be 9 in December, and she does double handsprings and back flips. And jeez, dude, it makes my back sore watching her. Yeah. So both my kids are into some pretty serious sports. Yeah. Which I think is important because that's where I met most of my friends.
100%.
You know, like whether it's sports or teams, things that we've done. Like even down south, I got so many friends from the Xfinity stuff and Busch stuff from years back that I cannot see them in 3 or 4 years and go down there and basically stay at their place. Right. You know, it's heck, I was living with a guy on living on his couch in North Carolina when I met my wife, and I remember him telling me that it's never going to work. You're here, she's there, and so on. And he was there when I proposed to her, and he couldn't believe it. I mean, it all started on his couch. So, that's good. Yeah, like I say, it's the people you meet along the way that you find out who your true friends are. I mean, you know, you don't even have to talk to them all the time, but when you need them, they're there.
Yeah. So you got Chase running sprints, micro sprints. Yep. What's the plan for him, or is he going to be a hockey guy as far as racing goes?
Whatever he wants. Right. I'm not forcing anything on him. Yeah. I don't know where he gets it. He's very competitive. It's got to be from his mom. Yeah, sure. I mean, you've seen me get a little heated, Gary. It's probably one of my worst attributes. I get pretty hot pretty quick, and I try to control it, but
that's racing.
It's tough, man. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. You put so much time and effort into stuff, and you know, somebody wrongs you or whatever, and it pisses you off. I mean, it's, you know, it's blood, sweat, and tears, but you got to learn how to control that too. And my kid's bad at it. I mean, with hockey, everything, he knows his way to the penalty box. But I know where he gets it, and I'm working on it with him because I know he gets it from me, and he sees me. Right. You know, he sees me at the racetrack. He sees me get heated and hot, and I shouldn't. And I mean, it's sport, man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you don't have that passion, why do it?
100%. It's such a fine line. Like, you know, you have to have enough fire in you to go win and
that's right,
compete hard. But
you got sponsors' names on there too, so you got to keep it in check. Yep. You know, it's tough. But I think he's gonna pursue the hockey path for now. we'll keep racing. We'll keep doing whatever he wants to do there, as long as I can. But that's totally up to him. I mean, he goes with me a lot, as you know.
Yeah.
On the road, trucking and so on with it, and that's fun.
Yeah.
It means a lot to me. It's a lot of quality time. It's a lot of fun time. Probably learns a lot of stuff he shouldn't, especially my race team. You know how that goes.
Yeah, my dad said it's nothing he hasn't heard before in the schoolyard, so that's fine. He's fine.
Yeah, I've used that one too. Yeah, that's a good one, 100%. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's good. Do you think it's harder to make it in hockey or racing?
Oh man, that's a tough one. It takes such dedication to do both.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it this way: the Daytona 500. Let's say that's your pinnacle in motorsports. Whether you're NASCAR, you're IndyCar, maybe it's the Indy 500.
Sure.
Whatever. There's only 40 people a year that get to do that.
Yep.
They draft a lot more than that in the NHL every year.
Yep.
There's a lot more teams. There's it's tough, but to be at, whether it's hockey, racing, football, basketball, baseball, whatever, to be that elite athlete, it takes a lot.
And more as time goes on.
100%.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would say any elite sport, any top-notch sport, just takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of dedication, and you got to be willing to put in the time.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's, like I say, racing, whether it's working on cars or prepping yourself, or, I mean, you got me, honestly, I was 248 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
You remember?
Yep.
Talking to you and seeing, your physique and the way that you take care of your body made me want to lose weight.
Yeah, you lost a shit ton of weight.
60 pounds.
Yeah.
Like I got down to 178 from 248.
That's probably a little light.
That was a little much for me. 200's right on the money. 195 for my build, it's good.
Yep.
But it was actually talking to you that, inspired me to do it. Seeing, what you eat, how you do. We talked about it quite a bit.
Yep.
And but that's what it takes. So I was able to put almost 40 pounds more on the right side of my race car for CTMP.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's like even on the oval car, it's like, now it was huge.
Yeah.
I'm lowering like 60 pounds. I'm putting it in the frame rail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took a lot of dedication.
Mm-hmm.
It took a lot to do it, but we made it happen, and then we've maintained it. I mean, I'm 208 right now.
Yep.
I'm a little bit too heavy.
Yep.
But I know if I were to get at it hard, I could be at 195 in a couple months.
Yep.
Pretty easy.
Yep. No, it's not. It's not hard once you know what you're doing. But
that's right.
Yeah.
It's dedication. It's mindset.
Yep.
And you've got to have it. And it actually helped me, even with I love hockey. I still play hockey a lot.
Yep.
I got to the point where I'm a goalie. I couldn't do it at 240 pounds. My knees hurt. My back hurt.
Sure.
Everything hurt.
Yeah.
And now when I can play 3 games a night, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So it was a big step, but that's the dedication it takes to be an elite athlete or to be at the top of your game, whatever sport it is.
For sure. Okay. Create the perfect series for me.
Oh. Wow. I don't know. There's such a thing. I think probably the closest thing ever was the IROC series to me.
Yeah. I love spec racing.
Everybody's got the same, as close as you can get.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that on a short track or on a, rather than a Daytona or a mile and a half. I mean, racing anymore is hard for anybody because of cost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's 4 cylinders at Flamborough.
Yep. Yeah.
It's expensive. And that's the hardest part. So if I had a series that I know I had the exact same car as you have, and it's up to you and me,
yeah,
well, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
And that, and you beat me. I got to get my game better. Yep. Like it's the way it is, right? That's what people always ask me about rental cars. Like, when I was doing your oval stuff or Andrew's stuff, well, you're not going to give them the same as you. Well, yeah, I am.
Yep.
I want to, because I want to be running side by side for first and second.
Yep.
because then that looks good on me, looks good on my business, looks good on everything. If Gary goes out and beats me, well, he beats me.
Yeah, it looks really good on you as far as the rental program goes.
I better get my head out of my butt and get going on my own stuff, you know? Andrew won a lot of races for me.
Yep.
Won a championship.
Yep.
I mean, it's, you know, but he beat me.
Yep.
So I would say like something along the lines of the IROC deal, like a spec.
Yeah. And I guess that's the only way you really can control cost is if you don't bring the car home.
100%.
It's the only way.
100%.
Yeah.
Because if it's the same thing with tires and everything. Gary buys tires, I got to buy tires.
Yep.
Like it's the way it is. It sucks, but it's the way it is because you don't want to see yourself 14th on the board.
Right.
You know, I know if I put tires on, I'm going to be 5th. Well, you're going to put tires on because you want to see yourself in 5th or you want to see yourself in 1st. You know, I don't know how many times I bolted tires on just to go to the top of the board.
Yep.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yep.
But it's what we do.
Yep.
it's what we do. So if there was a way to cap something like that, like I say, it's so hard. But a spec series, like you say, because I know if I took my car home, even if it's a spec series, I'm going to try to do something.
100%.
I mean, I'm going to try to do something so I get an edge
on
you. I'm going to get an edge for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's controlling costs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hate talking about it out loud, but the NASCAR thing's expensive, man. You know it and I know it.
Yep.
And there's got to be ways that we can, you know, cut costs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll get more cars. Maybe people can actually think about affording it if we can cut the costs.
Yeah.
You know, we're very fortunate I'm very fortunate to have a sponsor.
Yeah.
Many sponsors.
Yeah.
Like, you know, not just one. Castrol's obviously the primary, but, you know, Brimstone and CIM and Brian Cathcart and like all these people that help us.
A lot of people, yeah.
Like, you can't do it without them.
Yep. Yep.
And like, I'm not independently wealthy. As much as people want to think that's the way it is, like I don't do rental programs and so on for the good of my health.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I do it because I need to run a business.
Yep.
And my dad has helped me a ton throughout the years, obviously, but now it's my business.
Right.
And you know it, and I know it. If you pay more than you bring in, you're not in business very long.
Nope. One thing I wanted to ask you, going back to we were talking about losing weight and eating and kind of those habits. Since I met you, you never drank or smoked your whole life. Why?
I was always too busy.
But was it something your dad said?
My dad never drank.
Saw?
My dad never drank. My dad smoked cigars when I was really young.
Product of the times.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I was, I barely remember it.
Yeah.
But he never drank. My mom never drank. I was never really around it. Even when you get to that age when you start to party with your buddies and so on.
Yeah, like playing hockey at 16.
I always had to be back to work. Almost because I was afraid of my dad.
Sure.
Like what he would think.
Sure, yeah.
I always had that in the back of my mind. Like I wanted him to be proud of me. I wanted him to think highly of me like I did of him. So I just never ever got there. I mean, you know, I've had the odd Ryan Coke or whatever in my life, but I've never drank.
Right.
Like, ever. Like maybe if I go away to an all-inclusive resort, I like some strawberry daiquiris. I mean, but that's it. Like I've never had a beer.
Right.
I never was around it, and I never ever got into it. A lot of my buddies, I mean, heck, I loved giving them rides home because it was entertaining, man.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, you get to see it from that end. It's not so pretty.
And they appreciated it too, right? Because everybody got home. But no, I never was just never really exposed to it. So I never got into it, and I'm glad.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like I say, I can go now. I can have a couple strawberry daiquiris at a resort or something like that, and never think anything of it.
Right.
Like, you know, but yeah, I'm actually kind of proud of it. I mean, it's
something to be proud of.
My dad always told me that you can put a beer in front of a dog, he'll drink it. You know what I mean? But put a beer in front of a dog and show him one that doesn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's I don't know. I just never got into it. And do I hate it or do I? No, I don't give a crap who drinks or who does what. I mean, that's your own prerogative, man. You're grown adults. Have at her.
Yep. 100%.
You know, so, but yeah, just never ever was around it.
All right, before I let you go, I ask everyone and clearly you're the guy to ask. You've had a sponsor. You've been racing professionally for a bajillion years. What advice do you give, or would you give young guys who want to, maybe it's, do something similar to what you're doing, or just simply say, I'm going to make a living racing?
That's hard, Gary.
It's a hard question.
A hard one. It is. It's like anything else. If you have a passion for something, I think you can make a go of it. My dad always told me, too, that he never worked a day in his life because he enjoyed what he did. That's a lot of bull crap, I think, because
everyone works.
Because I've seen him work, man, and he's worked hard. But, I would say if you want to do it, do it. But you've got to go all in. You've got to put in the time. It's not a 9-to-5 job.
Right.
Racing has never been, never will be. It's all hours. But you've got to learn the business. You've got to learn that sometimes you can't go and buy that set of tires, or sometimes you can't have new brakes this week. Make smart decisions to try to get that bank roll up a little bit so that you can get the stuff that you do need.
Right.
But don't go beyond your means, because as soon as you do, it's so hard to get back. I've been so fortunate with my partners, obviously. A young kid getting into the sport, try to get yourself a sponsor.
Right.
And learn how to take care of that sponsor. Tell that sponsor what you can do for them, not what they can do for you. Because you're asking for support, money, product, whatever. They know that.
Right.
That's what a sponsor is.
Right.
But they don't know what you can do for them. And you do a really good job at that stuff, like with your podcast, with your social media stuff, and so on. Like, that's the stuff you have to do nowadays. And I'm not the greatest at it. I'm not I'm not a tech guy.
Sure.
I'm a carburetor, tires. I'm like your crew chief. I'm like Flatchy.
Yep.
Except without the cigarettes. And
he's quit now. He's 3 or 4 months off it.
Good for him. I didn't even know that.
He's not going back.
That's a good thing.
Yep.
That's a good thing. But like I say, you've got to want it.
Yeah.
You've got to stick with it, even when times are tough and they got you down. Because there's been a lot of times I've thought about, I've had enough. It beats you up, man. But if you want to do it bad enough, work at it. Keep working at it. Get yourself that sponsor and be a good person. This motorsports world is small. You screw one person, everybody knows it.
Right.
It's the way it works. And I've tried to pride myself on not doing that. Being honest, being straightforward. My sponsor has been with me so long that I still get nervous every day that when I take a picture or whatever, even on a family vacation, man.
Yep.
I'm looking in the background to make sure there's not a opposing oil company or something that shouldn't be there. It's stressful. Like, it's because you've got a corporate sponsor, you've got a big name, you've got people that you're representing. So if you can learn that at a young age in motorsports or in hockey or in anything, that whatever happens stays with you, then make yourself a good person, be a good person, try to stick with it and work your ass off, man. I mean, you got to work hard at this damn game.
Yep.
You know it and I know it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that my dad taught me.
It's good.
Is work hard. And if you work hard and put your nose down, you can make a go of it. I was 40 years old before I made the Daytona 500, but screw it, we made it. It may have been late. We aren't going to make a career out of that, but we got the opportunity.
Yeah, 100%.
So I owe that to him. I owe that to Castrol. I owe that to Dwight Kennedy and all the people along the way that helped me in my career and You can't name them all.
No.
But and you'd forget somebody for sure.
Yep.
But they know who they are, and they know that I appreciate it.
That's
and wouldn't change it for nothing.
Right on. Thanks for coming in, man.
My
Good
pleasure.
way to end it.
Finally.
Right on. If you guys enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe, like, share it with some friends, because this is the exclusive place for this podcast.